And it's a matinee affair for the Sports Adrenaline Show.
Yeah, about that.
Yep, the Vegas Golden Knights. They start off this road swing with a victory at Anaheim last night over the Ducks. Now they are ready to take on and face off against the second place LA Kings.
Beat LA. Beat LA.
God, I hate that chant.
Beat LA.
That's why we did a
The
matinee
Raiders-
show today. We all want to watch the game.
Yeah, the Raiders close out the season this Sunday at the LA Chargers. Anticlimactic. And Scott Gulbranson from the LA Raiders Report will be joining us live in the studio.
What's up,
We'll be
Scott?
discussing what went wrong this season and what the future holds for the Raiders
We don't have
coaching
enough time
staff,
for that. I don't know the show's long enough for all that.
as well as
believe
what the
there's
future
some
holds
news today.
for Rick
No.
and for Matt.
And maybe for the
And then,
use agreement.
okay. Yes, we will be addressing. Thank you so much, John. Do you want to continue that?
No,
thought?
no, but there's a lot of news today, right?
Yeah.
It's been released, so we get a preview of this, and it'll
Yeah,
be great to talk
it's
with
the
Scott about
tentative
it. Yeah.
lease agreement because it still has to be approved by the Board of Regents. The UNLV Running Rebels, they will be taking on Boise State on Saturday night over at the Thomas and Mack Center in what will be the conference opener. In the UFC, it's Holm versus Cyborg at the T-Mobile Arena on Saturday night. Tony Cardasco, along with Matt Gutierrez, Rick Strasser's back in the house, John Castanino, who's always on assignment, but he's here tonight. Produced by Richard Giacovino, and of course, Haley Brooks is back from Philly.
What's up, Haley?
Let's give her a shout out. Let's check in. How you doing? Good vacation?
I'm alive. It was cold. It was
Yeah.
really cold, so I never want to do that again. I'm done. I'm never going back.
So
I'm
you're
done.
still an Eagles fan after
Oh, I mean,
the
yeah.
game?
I mean, we did win. I mean, the game didn't go as well as I would have liked
dropped the
to.
weed.
But
Have we gotten her rant about when's going down? Have you talked about that? yet?
I cried about it a little the one day.
on the
but
show
on the
because
show,
we want to see
yeah.
you cry. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
on the
good.
show.
I missed that.
We
Okay.
want to see you cry. Yes. It helps ratings.
We're just about ratings. That's it. Luis Negretti has the night off. He's on assignment,
Yeah.
I
When he doesn't
guess.
show up, he has the night off. That's
Yeah,
how it works.
exactly.
Yep.
So let's start off, guys, with the knighthood. And who are those guys? Like, I posted the picture of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids. Really, I mean, at this stage of the season, who are these guys?
Yeah,
the expansion Vegas Knights, 50 points. 50 points now.
Unreal.
They lead the Pacific Division.
Unreal.
And
Unreal.
second in this week's power ratings, number 2. And only number 2 behind a team that they beat earlier this week. So it's incredible what this team is doing. And I think they continue. I mean, obviously they continue to set all kinds of records, with points. And, last night they had the longest, it was their 10th straight game without a loss, with a regulation loss. It's incredible. It's their third 5-game winning streak of the season already.
Right.
I mean, just incredible things that this team is doing, not just for an expansion team anymore. I mean, because they're already shattering
That's
those
what I was
records.
going to say. They're starting to redefine what a team actually is in the NHL. And you think about what the dynasties are in the NHL leading up to now, and obviously the one fresh in my mind is the Chicago Blackhawks, where they have superstars, Taves and Kane and Duncan Keith and Corey Crawford in it. Those are... You can make the argument they're all superstars in the NHL and still superstars. There is not one outside of Marc-Andre Fleury that's a superstar on this team. And you go back to the win last night against the Ducks where they have a horrible, it was a god-awful
a
first
bad
period.
first period.
Really bad. And then they just come out, lights out from then on. And in the locker room, this was what the Sinbin guys were talking about. They posted this in case
Ken
nobody read
Bulke
it.
went down to the game, and he's going
Right.
to the LA game tonight.
But they were just, these guys are, because there's no egos, it's all, 6 assistant captains, right? It seems like the locker room is a place where guys feel free to say whatever, and they feel free to say, you need to step up. Whatever it is, whatever those conversations are, there's no superstars and no egos that need to be checked in that locker room, and I think that it really is redefining what a team is right now.
Well, it's
and these
interesting
guys
the
are
style of
epitomizing
play
it.
that
Yeah.
they've been doing too, because that changes as they go too. They have adjusted to how they need to play with who they're playing. I mean, when they need to be a faster team and more aggressive that way, they've done that. When they've had to be a stronger team and even get a little chippy, they've done that. And it's been interesting to see them adapt to this season to all these different styles of play that they've done. Now, does that mean that they haven't yet figured out their identity, or is that their identity
No,
that
they're-
they can
No, I
adjust?
think
They,
that's
they
what
know
it is.
exactly
Right.
what they
Yeah.
are. This is a hardworking team. They're going to outwork every team on the ice every night.
Hey,
And
Matt,
that's
what about
they've- that's
what about
they've
the
done.
third and fourth lines? They continue to impress, right?
Yeah, and we talked about that last week, I believe. And you know, Gallant's not one to talk about line. He doesn't number the lines, but it's depth. This team has a ton of depth, and they all do what they're supposed to do. Gallant's talked about it being an easy game. Just go out and do your job, and this is an easy game. They're going to outwork everybody on the ice. That's their identity.
Hey, guys, don't forget if you're tuning in today on Facebook Live, we'll go over to Haley in just a few minutes, and we'll take some of your comments or questions
Please comment.
and whatever you want to say about our show. It's the final show of the year, so give us some shout outs or whatever. So 4-1 the win last night over Anaheim, starting slow, as you mentioned, John. A minute 40 into the game, the Ducks score the first goal, 15-8 shots on goal right there in the very first period. And from that point on, the Golden Knights just settled down. They played, I thought it was one of their better games defensively last night, especially as they gained more confidence and more steam. And Cody Eakin was so mad that he got put in the penalty box as soon as he
Was that
came
a
out of the
brilliant
box.
goal? Absolutely.
That was the game winner as Eakin scored the go-ahead goal in that contest. He didn't like the roughing call. He was, I think, a little bit disappointed in himself. And that penalty kill, I think, changed the entire complexion of the game.
Yeah, and you talk about their defense. They only allowed 5 shots in the third period against Anaheim. I mean, they were lights out on both ends of the ice last night, and 50 points. Not only do they lead the Pacific, they lead the Western Conference. If the playoffs started today, you're looking at home ice advantage throughout the Western Conference playoffs. That's amazing.
Crazy.
Did you guys notice, Rick? Did you notice in the game too, in the second period, that the Ducks looked really tired? You
Well,
could start to see them getting worn down.
Sure, and I think it's funny that because this is the third time they faced the Ducks, and it's amazing that teams are still falling into that against Vegas because it's almost like Vegas pulls them in, and then I mean, kind of like a fighter will kind of be a little defensive at first, and then come out and start getting them against the ropes. And that's what this team has done. They've fallen down 2-0, 2-0 against the Panthers and the Lightning, and they fall down 1-0 against the Ducks. And there is no quit in this team. I mean, all the cliches you want to say about never say die, that's what this team has been doing. I mean, what does that make them? 6-0 against last year's Final Four teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Right.
I mean, that's remarkable.
We're at a point now where we don't need to talk about this team as an expansion team other than the fact that this is, in fact, the first season for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is a legitimate hockey team. This is a playoff contender. This is a Stanley Cup contender as we stand right now coming into the new year. I mean, they are a legitimate contender to make a run in the playoffs this year. So the expansion talk, while it's always going to be there because it's still their first year, just go with this is a good team now.
I got, at Station Casinos the other day, I saw that the
this is
Stanley Cup
amazing.
line was down to 4-1
Yeah.
Nuts.
for the Vegas
Well, like
Golden
Rick
Knights.
mentioned, number
and
two
a lot
in
of
the
people
power rankings.
they have the Golden Knights. They have tickets at 150-1, 100-1, 50-1, 75-1, and at stations now 4-1. Not to make the playoffs, but to win the Stanley Cup.
It's unreal.
It's ridiculous.
It's unreal.
It really is.
And
It doesn't I have to think about what I'm saying because it doesn't.
I mean, have
sound
we
real.
ever not? I mean, go aside from hockey. Have we ever seen this in sports? I mean, I heard somebody on the radio, and give them credit for saying it, that we are actually living a 30 for 30 special in the future.
I saw that. I wish we did that. I saw the
mean,
same thing.
what a great line, because
Yeah.
you think of what this season has been, the way things started with the tragedies that we experienced here in Las Vegas, to the launch of the first ever major professional franchise in this town, and then going to their success and how they're winning and the manner in which they're doing it. The way they play in overtime, the fact that they were all the way down to a fifth string goalie. I mean, all these things are just absolutely mind blowing. That some teams you lose one player and they're kind of down for the count. This team has next man up. That's been the mindset, especially between the pipes, and they've been holding their own. And I tell you, Malcolm Subban's certainly making a name for himself in this league.
Yeah, he's won 5 straight now in net. John?
Yeah, let's just go to some video. And let's start with David Perron. And I want to he kind of gives you, he's great soundbite, first of all. and he really gives you a big picture look at this. And I was also able to ask him, and it's kind of a little bit off the point that we're making here, but I did talk to him about that article in the Players Tribune, just about how much these players are falling in love with Las Vegas. He gave us a fantastic answer. So here's David Perron after the last home game before this quick road trip.
Been like for you?
It's been unbelievable. I mean, just like from everything from the first game to how we've played there ever since. The adversity we had to go through with goalie situation, different injuries from different guys, and everyone stepped up at the right time. And you can't really say it's one guy. I think everyone's having a great season. You can't really pick anybody in the room that's not having a good year. So we got to keep it going. We still have a lot of work to go to make the playoffs and keep making noise. So we got to keep working hard.
Coach Pryor joked that Flower tied Dance's record tonight.
Oh yeah, for a shutout. Yeah, well, good for him. It's the first one in the uniform. He's got a lot in his career, I'm sure. And I mean, we need him to play like that every night. He was extremely sharp, and you could tell coming up in the last two practices too. Guys weren't really scoring on him, and you can tell when a goalie's ready.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, David, we saw that article in the Players Tribune. I'm sure somebody's asked you about it to this point. As a Vegas native, I mean, I thought it was an awesome read.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you put in there. Just tell us, are you falling in love with Las Vegas?
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. I mean, obviously, you get to the city and you see the effort that was put in from Bill Foley, from George McPhee, the management. Everybody was really involved in the process of first getting a team and then hiring all the great people that we have in the organization to make this thing right. And then you come in town, you bring new practice facility, everything's set up pretty much the right way. The staff's got some experience from other NHL teams, so they know what the guys will need and everything that we'll need. The main rink is unbelievable, and obviously the city temperature. I mean, I could go on and on, honestly, probably 10, 15 more things. It's been an absolute pleasure to play here, and obviously it wouldn't be the same thing without the success that we're having. I think everyone's playing for each other in here. We're tough to play, and even when we don't play our best games, we find ways to get points. For me, like the Carolina game, we get point in a game that you're not playing a good hockey game, and normally that's sign for a good hockey team.
So David Perron, like I said, just awesome soundbite. Love talking with him. Also, just really enjoy talking with Marc-Andre Fleury, just because the guy's so affable and likable. We were chit-chatting with him a little bit the other day, just like, hey, great game. And he's just so humble about it, thanks. But here's Marc-Andre Fleury again. This is the last home game before these guys went on the road trip. And he just talks about going into the holidays with some momentum, and obviously they continued that with a win last night against Anaheim.
I think it was a great team effort, to get that one, and it's the main reason why we got it.
Not a bad way to go into Christmas.
Yeah, it's good. You can relax, enjoy good food, take it easy, and be ready when we come back.
Great, congrats.
Thank you.
Hey, Flower, I know you already got asked this, I'm sure. Just how big was this homestand, and really just to carry some momentum into the short little break that you guys had?
We've been pretty good at home, and we've had great starts like tonight again, and it's a good thing we took advantage of it and got some points, right? And there's still a lot of hockey to be played. It's still early in the season, but real happy and proud, of our team to be in this spot right now.
It's the holidays, it's Christmas. What do you feel like Las Vegas has given you this season so far?
A new home, right? I think it's been great. The new team, the organization's been great to us, and all the fans have been great. At the games, supporting our team, and being happy to have a team here. And like I said, I think it's been a great new place for me and my family. Well,
first shutout as a Golden Knight, is that right, Mario?
Yeah, first shutout.
How nice is that?
It's good. It's like I said, great team effort. All the guys together. In front of me, they did a great job, and that's the main reason why we got it.
Does it seem like all the action was at the other? It seemed like the Knights were on a 20-minute power play in that first period. They played so well. All the action was at the other end.
Yeah. Again, I thought in the first we came out flying and got a great lead off it. We had it could have been worse. The goalie made some good saves, and it was good though. I like the way that we came out and we kept playing well after. Didn't give them too much, so it's good.
What is it about scoring the first goal? I think the Knights are now.
Good. There's a little rambling there at the end.
Was that you
not,
or him
not
rambling?
applicable. It was not me. I
Okay.
can tell you that. But you know, I think you get a snapshot there where it's more applicable to the game against the Capitals. But that was a game, right, that they played really strong early and then kind of let off the gas the last couple periods. But you see, whatever scenario this team finds itself in, it's able to adjust and do it quickly, and that's really, I think, a hallmark of this team.
Yeah, the team, they play tonight at 7 o'clock, and there is a watch party at the Suncoast at the Game Sports Bar. So
Who's going?
Sinbin is
I'm
going.
going.
Maybe.
Yeah, Sinbin's having a
Sinbin will
watch
be
party.
there. We'll be there.
I think we'll be there tonight. And then also the team, you know, we talked last week the way that the schedule's fallen for the Golden Knights. I mean, they just have a short bus trip to L.A. They tweeted out before midnight when they got in.
I don't think
so.
they
They
took a
should
bus.
be pretty fresh.
Yeah.
You think they drove?
Do you?
The subway? Okay.
From Anaheim, yeah. From
So
Anaheim
VGK
to
has
LA.
won 9 of its last 10 games. I read Drew Doughty's comments
from
today.
Anaheim.
The Kings defenseman said that the second, third, and the fourth lines are playing very well for Las Vegas. He also said that the
Something
Golden
we already
Knights are no longer a surprise. And Doughty said that they are hard on the forecheck, they are relentless on the puck, and they try to win every single battle. VGK beat the Kings 4-2 back on November the 19th.
Yeah, and that was a playoff atmosphere game.
That was
for
a lot of
sure.
fun. Yeah, that was.
I think that
arena
was the
amazing.
game that, at least for me,
Turning
where it went,
point?
you know what? I think this
Yeah.
team is legit.
Yeah.
You know, it took some. You know, we had the initial run out of the gates, and then that tough first road trip and dealing with all the the goalie issues. But I think that game against LA, that first one, and then I don't know, for me personally, it was completely solidified that this team was absolutely for real with the game against the Lightning. They played so well in that game. I heard people talking about that game ever since and how that game ended. And
It was
Theodore
amazing.
slap
I've
shot,
never seen anything
incredible.
like that. No,
Yeah.
2.3 to go, and you get the game winner.
Yeah.
Have you guys watched Eric Branstrom play any of the juniors, Swedish juniors hockey?
Not that, but I watched him in training camp, and really impressive. I mean, I know everybody is.
He had a
ranting and
blast,
raving, yeah.
like from the right side yesterday. Then on a slap shot, it was annihilating. Like so, again, check that out. Future Vegas Golden Knight. Let's go over to Haley. And Haley, you know what? Like, did you get my message that I wish that you were here to interview the Bachelorette?
I did. And
Rachel
you know what?
Lindsay.
I saw it.
Because
but
it was going to be creepy if I went over there to go talk
no,
to her.
it's just
Yes,
I
yes,
honestly
it
have
would.
no idea about the Bachelor, Bachelorette, any of that stuff. So I would have been clueless. You were better off doing it. I'm not one of those people. And I was going to call you out for insinuating that, but I didn't because I was being anti-phone. But
You're
but
also
I didn't.
anti-Bachelorette, I guess.
Well,
You can
yeah, I'm
be anti-Tony, that's
anti-Bachelor.
fine.
But yeah, guys, if you're watching, come leave some comments. I need something to do over here. I need to wake up a little bit. Got a little jet lag. But we have Ryan Scafie. How do we say that? Do we
Hey,
know
Ryan, what's up?
Scafie? Do we know Ryan? Hi, Ryan. They chimed in, said, you know, they were like, Rick, and then they were like, Richard. So just wanna, not you guys though, just Rick and Richard. So
Okay.
just leaving. you
Is
out
Rachel
of the
Lindsay tuning in? No. No,
Rachel Lindsay?
Yeah.
If she
Bachelorette.
is, she hasn't. Oh,
Yeah,
Is
no.
that, did you interview her? Did
No,
you do it?
like I
you
said.
should have done it.
No,
Isn't
I
that what
would've
your
been-
job is?
I know. A little strange.
It's fine. But also, there's some guy, Scott Goldbranson, commenting on this. I don't know who
She's
he
awesome.
is. But yeah, I think he's actually here, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it's time to look ahead at the Raider Nation, as you mentioned. Thanks for the intro over there, Scott Branson from the LV Raiders Report. Welcome
Thanks for
aboard.
being here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I don't know whose hand is on my knee right now, but we'll just roll with it. Just
Pick
go.
those up real quick.
Okay, all right.
All hands on deck.
Must be Tony then.
So, Jack Del Rio said, that he feels that the Raiders are as close as they were a year ago. I don't know how, really, but he said in his weekly press conference that there's a fine line between winning and where the Raiders are right now, and I have to absolutely disagree after the loss at Philly at Lincoln Financial Field.
There's no way you can say they were where they at last year when they had a total of 60 yards in the second half at Philadelphia,
Yeah.
somewhere in that neighborhood. This team is not playing good football. They are playing better in spots. The defense has obviously stepped up since Pagano took over. They're more aggressive. He's put their playmakers in positions that they need to be in to make plays. But as a team, they're not playing good football.
Well, the one argument that you can make for his comment was the fact that last year a lot of their wins came last minute. New Orleans, they go for 2 to win the game, and they get so there were a lot of wins like that. But to your point, they were still in the games and getting a lot of yards, and their offense was moving the ball. And this year, it's horrible.
Being in a close game because both teams are playing terribly isn't the same thing as being in a close game and just pulling it out at the end.
Sure.
They were in a close game with Philly because neither team wanted to do anything with the ball.
Well, it comes down to execution too, right, man?
Right.
I mean, the fact is, this entire season can be boiled down to the ineffectiveness of the offense. Everybody going in thought, geez, this defense is going to be middle. If it's middle of the pack, it would have been an upgrade, right? And it sort of was. It had its outages, but the defense has kept the team in the games. The offense has failed to do anything to really progress and to win ball games, and we've seen it. I mean, we've seen the last 2 weeks, particularly with turnovers. There's a lack of focus. I mean, the bottom line is you cannot hide it. They've said all season long, it's the details, it's the details. Well, the details have not gotten better.
No.
And so
Who takes the blame for that?
Now you have to look at coaching because players have to execute on the field. There's no doubt about that, Rick. But I think that at this point, what's different from last year? Okay, for the most part, you have a lot different play calling scheme. You have different schemes. Blocking schemes are different than they were last year. Raiders fans were used to that vertical game. Now, when they go to that vertical game, it tends to be at the last minute. And Carr lost his confidence. I really believe that. No matter what he says, he's a great guy, and he always takes the blame. He's a good leader. He steps up and he says, blame it on me. But in reality, if you look at what's happening and what's being called out there, it just doesn't seem to jive with the talent.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll note, one more thing, is that I think one of the deals with Todd Downing, the offensive coordinator, at least for the next week, has been that he tries to involve too many guys.
Yeah.
He's trying to get the ball to 15 different people, and you can't do that. If you look at what they did last year, that's not what they did. They went to their talent. You look at Amari Cooper, you look at Michael Crabtree, they're not in key plays where they were last year.
I like Cordell Patterson a lot, but he should not be the focal point of this offense.
Correct.
He just shouldn't be. He's very limited in what he can do as a wide receiver. He's got lightning speed, we all know that. But he's limited as what he can do as a route runner, as a wide receiver. And they try to use him in so many different ways. And I think that all started with that big run he had against the Jets where he broke for, what was that, 60, 50 yards, somewhere in there for the touchdown, coming out of the backfield like a running back. And they went, oh, my God, look at the weapon we have. And they haven't been able to get away from that since.
So, Scott, we also saw Scott Witter, of the
senior writer, yes.
LV Raiders Report online on your website, the podcast which we listened to. He was quoted on Twitter this week as saying, with Todd Downing very likely out the door next week, hearing some Norv Turner buzz. That is, if Jack Del Rio is still the head coach, Mark Davis is very unhappy. However, Del Rio probably gets another year based on defense really stepping up under
I
my
can't
man
see Del Rio going.
Pagano.
No,
he stays. I think he stays.
I agree. And number one, you look at the history of the Raiders, and I'm sitting next to a guy here, Matt, who knows it really, really well. And part of the problem over the last 15 to 20 years with the Raiders has been that continuous change of coach. Now, there's a lot of folks out there. We're not one of these sites that sit there and call for coaches to be fired all the time, right? Jack Del Rio just got an extension. He was allowed to make changes. Some of those changes obviously did not work. Okay, the change at offense didn't work, and I think we're going to see a correction there. But overall, he's built a culture there that is very different than it was when he got there, and I think that earns him a lot of credit. Could he be gone? There's always a chance something happens, but I think it's going to be a very small chance that Jack Del Rio will not be there. If I was going to bet on it, I would bet every dollar I had that he will be there.
Well, we talked about the differences between last year and this year, especially in the offense. This year, if an uneducated guy like me can sit in my recliner watching the game and predict the play by the formation each time that they line up, what are these minds who know what they're doing on defensively? I mean, it's like they knew the play calls before they happened because there was no creativity to it. There was no vertical game. Everything was the same week in and week out, and nothing changed.
Well, and I think it's a little bit. I always joke and I tell folks with our site that Todd Downing tries to be a little too cool for school. He's trying to be very intricate. He has a lot of different complex situations that they run on, and I think you going back and you talked about Scott Winter, who writes for us. He brought up a good point to me the other day. He said, Vince Lombardi, John Madden, of course, Raider Hall of Famer, went to a coaching clinic that Vince Lombardi threw, and for 8 hours they studied a left sweep. just a power sweep left for 8 hours. And he came out of that and he said, I don't know anything about coaching. So I think what happens, though, is for players, the Raiders' offense last year versus this year, those players knew that. They knew the plays. When you ran plays in the slot, for example, okay, those were all happening fine. Now you're doing all kinds of different things, and I think you have such a complex nature to it behind the scenes that the players don't get it all. They don't get it all, nor should they. And when you have a guy like Derek Carr, who's pretty dang smart, who doesn't even – I see him in sync. That's what I always say. There's no rhythm to this offense. There hasn't been since week 2.
How hurt is Carr?
They say his back is still hurting him.
Yeah, because, I mean...
Is that the latest? That's what I heard.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if once the season is over, you see Carr go through some sort of, whether it's rehab, minor surgery, something like that, to straighten out whatever it is that's in his back. Because he did have the broken bones early in the season, which was, what game was that? Washington game?
Yeah, Washington.
Yeah,
Washington.
I mean, how hurt is he? I mean, his confidence is shaken, and I think a lot of that has to do with the broken leg from last year. I don't think he ever got over that shell shock.
Right.
But I think getting hurt again has made it even worse.
He's definitely more frustrated, more animated. That Seth Roberts route where he's supposed to run shallow, and he went deeper, and the pass
I want to see more of that from
really,
Carr, to be honest with you.
It was really underthrown.
That's what I want to see from him.
Amari Cooper in the game, right? With that double move. Did you see the reaction by Todd Downing?
Like it was his first touchdown.
He ran up and down the field and was jumping up and
because he knows that he's on the hot seat.
Oh well, I would have done the same thing because Cooper caught a football. Yeah, Cooper actually caught the ball.
Not only that, but
that was cause for
he designed a play that worked the way he wanted it to work. And in a season where most of his plays have not worked the way he wanted them to work, I think he just got a little excited.
But I think with Carr, I mean, the injury, obviously, you go through something like that, it takes time, and he might not be. And I said at the beginning of the year with the broken leg that it takes a whole season to feel yourself, probably. But I think more of his struggles have less to do with the injury and have more to do with that lack of rhythm on offense. They're not on the same page.
No.
It doesn't seem the coaching, the players, him and his receivers, even the offensive line. The offensive line, who's still one of the best in the league, has had issues too, right, in spots.
They've seemed a lot more discombobulated than they did last year. They were such a strong unit. And, I want to ask about the running game because, Marshawn Lynch has been better, the last 6 weeks, I think. But the consistency of the running game has not been there, which has put a lot of pressure, on Carr with the passing game. And, last year, with Murray, it seemed like you had a lot more of what you knew what you were going to get. And then you had the change of pace with Richard and Washington. And those guys are still there, and they're still the same. But how much of a difference was it between having Murray and having, beast mode in there?
I think the difference is the way that they were used more than anything. I don't think because I think Marshawn has been productive when he's been given the reps in the games. He still runs really hard. He's still elusive.
Yes. Yeah, he was running very hard.
The difference is so they go with more of his own blocking scheme this year instead of a power blocking scheme because Marshawn does prefer the zone blocking scheme, but the offensive line is not built for that type of scheme. So you lose something there, and they get away from the running game too easily because they've been behind so often in these games. You see a lot of 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10 runs that aren't going to go anywhere.
You also saw Marshawn Lynch. I think it took him a while to even get into game strength because you never saw him in the second half of games in the first half of the season.
And I honestly feel like that was by design. I don't think it was a Lynch problem. I think it was more of an offensive concept problem.
So how many times are the Raiders going to commit penalties, especially on 3rd down? And then we saw the 45-yard play.
Well, as long as there's officials on the field.
The Cooper reception and then the 16. Enough of them getting jobbed here. Like, seriously, they cause their own penalties.
Yeah, I mean, they shoot themselves in the foot. Every team does, but...
We know that they've gotten jobbed on occasion, but hey, I've had enough. Then the other thing that
really
really
Sundays, right?
On every Sunday, yes, on any given Sunday.
Let me fold some
paper. Hey, so what was up with Carr after his second interception? I don't know if you caught this as well. He's smiling as he's coming off the field. Did you guys notice that?
I think it fits his personality.
That really well. I mean,
and I put it to you this way: I know a lot of people talked about it, Tony, and I get the reaction.
You saw my tweets. I was becoming Matt overnight.
But and believe me, Raider Nation is so passionate. You see it happen there too, and there was a lot of name calling and things going on. But I will tell you that he's a guy who, in the face of adversity and stress, because of his faith and so on, I believe he handles things differently. It's like Russell Wilson. You ever see Russell Wilson in a press conference when he's screwed up? He's very calm. His demeanor is very straight.
Yeah.
And I think different guys handle different. I know people want Carr to come out and start screaming and yelling and all that kind of stuff. And he may get to that point if the Chargers do what they could do to them. Who knows? But I didn't look at it as a big deal. But I understand why people are upset because they're frustrated over the way the season has gone. They're frustrated over the way he's played, and so it comes out in situations like
Scott, you've got a paper there with a lot of yellow highlights on it, which is more preparation than any of us do. So let's talk about what that's all about with the
lease agreement
that has come out. What more do we know right now?
Well, there's a couple key things that we found out with the release of the summary, and actually the entire proposed agreement is there too, and we're going through that. That obviously takes a little bit longer to go through, but I think a couple of the key things that we focused in on. One is this was supposed to not only be a facility for UNLV to upgrade so that they have a better place to play, but also a place that they could make revenue. And what we've seen in this agreement initially is that they are going to get some of that revenue via the ability to sell seats, premium seats, and some suites. Some suites will be blocked
excluding
off from
22 on the owner's level.
That's right, on the owner's level.
And then 8 luxury suites.
Yes, correct. So they're going to have the opportunity to sell seats and revenue. The other issue was parking revenue and concessions, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Parking, this one was a little bit of a mixed bag that I found in the agreement, proposed agreement, which was UNLV will keep revenue from parking that is on site at the stadium. Now, what do we all know about on-site parking at the stadium? It's going to be very small. Yeah. So they're not going to generate a ton of revenue from there. Any other parking outside, they will not get revenue from. And they're kind of up to their own. They can do their own parking and for their own games, but the Raiders will not be using UNLV parking or the UNLV properties for parking per this agreement too. So those are a couple of the things that popped out. The other thing was the ability to sell advertising. Digital is mostly digital inside the
temporary
is the key word there.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, there's some revenue. The other interesting thing that popped out to me was about scheduling. So when it comes to scheduling, we've known all along,
and it's right here in this lease agreement.
Yes, that the Raiders were going to have kind of first right of refusal on everything and kind of dictate scheduling.
Yeah, because they could schedule events, what they call events, that could be larger revenue making.
That's correct.
Opportunities.
That's correct. So in addition to UNLV's regular home games, they are, per the agreement, allowed to have 2 non-conference games, and specifically they point out that those should be Power 5 type conference games, which is interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. In addition, they get 3 at-large events. So UNLV can use the stadium for 3 other events as it wants to, as it schedules with the Raiders. It doesn't conflict. And those can be any major events that they want. That could be
commencement. They said spring game in there.
It could be anything.
Could be anything.
It could be anything, but that's another opportunity for them. I doubt they would use it for something like commencement, even though it's in the document, because you're not going to make money off commencement if UNLV is smart about it.
You could.
So, depending if you had a headliner, right?
So, and then you have 4 hours before each game, 3 hours after. That's part of the whole rental process.
Yep.
What stood out to me, too, is you have to end an event, one of these games, 12 hours before an NFL game is scheduled to kick off. Also, the playing surface.
Yes.
Artificial turf for UNLV, and that grass that they're going to slide in and out of the venue for the Raiders.
Yeah.
I love that concept, especially because the Raiders do want to have the grass field. You're not going to have issues where you see in Pittsburgh a lot of times where the field just gets destroyed, just absolutely chewed up. You saw it in Miami. You still see it in Miami. It just absolutely destroyed turf on there for the professional game versus the college game when it had a week to rest. So UNLV's always wanted the turf. It's good that they're going to be able to figure out a system to slide both of those in and out.
Yeah, and the Raiders are obviously going to pay for it too. Outside of doing some graphical work on the field, they're going to pay, and that was obviously key to the agreement.
Right, and it will have the UNLV logo, right?
Correct.
In the center of the field, because that was a point of contention early
Not
on.
that one. Definitely not that one.
Not the hated one.
I mean, there's no reason that they can't keep the same look that they have with the current field at Sam Boyd, because it's going to be a different field than what you see from the Raiders.
Well, they should, and you know that was voted one of the top college football fields in the country. I mean, they should do that. They encapsulated Vegas with that field, which you know they should keep that.
Yeah.
Concessions. Someone on Twitter today. People have no chill, absolutely. But someone was like, "Good thing the Raiders are controlling concessions. I can't go through another season of Sam Boyd concessions."
Well, you know what? That's true. The Raiders will control concessions, but UNLV gets to keep the net proceeds
Right.
from their games. And they also get to, which is very popular, as you guys know, in college athletics, trade out on food for teams and things like that, for personnel on the ground. So that's sort of, when you get concession rights to a stadium, everything has to go through you. It's a catering deal. The UNLV will get an opportunity to kind of skip through that, which is good.
Do they have a concessionaire yet? Do we know anything
No,
about that?
They do not have one yet, but there has been names bantered around.
Like a Levy or someone
Correct,
that's big,
correct.
or an Aramark,
Yeah.
or what have you.
Yeah, and there'll be permanent UNLV signage at the stadium, which will identify it as UNLV's home field, which is good. The other big issue was, with Sam Boyd Stadium going away, UNLV generates revenue. Now, they have costs associated with Sam Boyd and keeping it up, but they also have revenue. There's an offset as part of this agreement of $3.5 million per year, which has been talked about ever since it was in front of the legislature when they passed the law. So that means UNLV won't lose money on events that it used to have, like Supercross and whatever the heck else they have out there nowadays. But that's also a big deal because the Rebels and the UNLV athletic department, obviously still in financial straits. That's big for them to be able to keep some of that revenue.
I'm curious what happens to like the Las Vegas Bowl, and other major events. Like, mentioned Supercross. Supercross does play to a lot of stadiums, like Anaheim, and they play at major stadiums. I should say.
The bottom line with that one is that the Raiders and the Las Vegas Stadium Company are now, as you'll see it bantered around as Stadco, they control all that. So when it comes to bowl games, that's all going to be the Stadium Company. Again, though, UNLV will have 3 events they can do a year. So if they want to do, obviously it wouldn't be a bowl game, but it could be something like a Supercross or a concert or whatever they want to do. So there's 3 options there. But they have to, if you look at the language, the Raiders have to sign off on those.
Yeah,
They can't just say we're going to do this.
Right, and
That's
those non-conference games can be scheduled 4 years out to 7 years out. I think it was in that window. And also, as you mentioned, I think this is a real important point because they want Power 5 opponents. Right. So they want the opponents that are going to pack the stadium, right? And these would get precedence over what they call quote events, right? Yeah. So that's, to me, that is something now you won't see the Howards of the world or, a lot of these lower division teams for non-conference. If you want to play them, they could be part of the mix, but UNLV would take a hit on that, right?
Right. And the one thing I'll say that'll be interesting, the Board of Regents special meeting to discuss this, not vote on it, will be on Thursday, the 4th, is the rent issue. Now, if you read through the document when it comes to the rent, there's no specific dollar amount other than UNLV has to pay for what they call pass-through costs. So that could be staffing, that could be all that. But what it doesn't say is specifically what that will cost. Now, if I'm the Board of Regents and I'm in charge of UNLV's budget, I'm going to want to know some more detail to understand what that means, number one. And number two, that I found interesting under the rent cost section was about, there's a lot of discussion in the document about right sizing. Now, for those of you who don't know what right sizing means, that you could see with Jacksonville Jaguars in their playoff game, they're still tarping seats off. UNLV, and again, this is not a criticism of UNLV, they're not going to fill 65,000 seats. No. Now, eventually one day, if they're really good, absolutely they could. But as of now and as of first year in that stadium, they're not going to. So right sizing means what configuration are they going to have for UNLV football games, which will factor into the overall cost, which is their rent. So the idea that are you going to come out and it's going to start out 45,000? Are you going to tarp off upper levels and you're going to keep it this way? So some of that discussion will be key to figure out what the cost will be for UNLV overall.
It's going to get really tricky because of, so you have these conference and non-conference schedules years in advance, right? A lot of the time. And so we haven't even talked about TV, and what television could do to disrupt like the scheduling and what have you. So it's going to be really tricky. And obviously, the main goal of the new stadium is to make money and revenue, generate a lot of revenue as much as they possibly can. So they're going to go for the larger events. Yeah. So it's really going to get tricky.
How much of this is, depending on kind of what conference they're in, when they get to that point. If the Pac-16 does expand and they are invited, or if it's a Big 12 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that obviously could be big for UNLV if they can get there, because then you start having opponents come in. If you're in a Power 5 conference, obviously your conference opponents alone are going to be a bigger draw, especially if you're talking about a Pac-12 expansion where you're going to have a UCLA, a USC, a Stanford in your stadium all the time.
Does that change? Would that change the verbiage of who they have to bring in the non-conference?
Good question. That's a great question for the Board of Regents to discuss.
Haley, write that down. He said I had a good question.
Bingo. But I think overall, is this good for UNLV? I think it's going to remain to be seen. It certainly is better than Sam Boyd Stadium, and they're getting a better facility, and they're going to be able to sell a little more. And it's obviously for sponsors. If I'm a sponsor, I'm going to be more excited about coming in and having digital ad boards in this beautiful new stadium than I would be out off of Russell and Boulder Highway. So to me, it's a good deal. I think there's still things. The Board of Regents meeting will be interesting to see what questions they come up, because it's
do you think there would be any pushback? I hate to
I don't know
interrupt
about
you, but do you
pushback.
think that what type of questions do you foresee?
Well, I think it comes down to fiduciary responsibility of the Board of Regents, right? So they have to look at it from that angle, and also what's good for the future of UNLV and UNLV athletics. So they're going to ask some questions, I'm sure, which will be focused on the economic impact of what they're doing. But it's something that will gel together over time. But the issue with the scheduling, we were talking before the air. Could UNLV be playing more Thursday, Friday night games when this happens?
Right.
Very much could be the case.
So, Scott, tell us more about LV Raiders Report, where they could find you. I know there's a lot of Raider fans. Are you gaining a lot of momentum and steam with the Raiders moving here? How things are going?
Yeah, we started the site really 3 years out from the Raiders coming here, and that was because we felt like, boy, the story of how this is all happening in the stadium and all the construction in Las Vegas becoming officially a Raiders town was something we wanted to jump ahead of. We also want to educate fans. There's a lot of transplants here. They might not be Raider fans yet. We still think they will be when the team comes here, because it is your hometown team. And the website itself, we cover all that is the stadium, all that is the Raiders, and we do it, I think, from a really professional level. We have former sports editors of the Review Journal. We have AP writers. We have a lot of folks who have professional journalist backgrounds, just like you guys here. And so that, I think, sets us apart. Fan sites are great. There's amazing, great websites that cover the Raiders across the nation. We are the one focused on Las Vegas and its future here, the team's future in the city. A lot of things coming down the line, Tony, and we're excited. We can't talk about them yet, but we're getting there. But we want to thank everybody for the support.
You can tell us. No, we won't tell anybody.
We won't tell anybody on Facebook. But yeah, so that's coming. The podcast, we have a lot of fun. Scott Winter and I host it. We also have started peppering in guests there too. And we have a Raider alumni coming on next week, which we'll talk about as soon as we get that firmed up. But it looks good. And of course, we'll have you guys on too. That's
awesome.
That's
nice.
Thanks so much, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott Gulbranson. Haley, do you have any comments for us?
Vince De La Cruz is watching, and he's got a bunch of comments and questions and suggestions, so I'm just going to
He wants music.
Fire it off.
Music at the beginning of the show.
Was that Vince that wanted
I don't know,
that?
but someone mentioned Cardi B.
He wants John Gruden as the coach of the Raiders.
Well, yeah. What if Cardi B was the coach of the Raiders?
We need a
Plot
house
twist.
band. That's
There
what
you
we
go.
need.
First female coach in history. But yeah, so in regards to the stadium, Vince was saying, so will they be utilizing Bali High Golf Course for parking like they do at the Arroyo Grande Seco Golf Course for the Rose Bowl? Is that a thing? I don't know if I'm pronouncing
No.
right
I
either.
parked at that golf course, right?
Yeah,
If you go to
if
the
you
Rose
go-
Bowl.
if you go to the-
Scott, any word on that?
No, there's a lot of talk about it, but remember,
Good question.
the county leased that out to Billy Walters. Billy Walters is now in jail, but there's a lease issue there. I'm sure they're going to try to work on it, but I would look for some parking news in the next 6 months. Once the stadium starts really getting under construction and we get into the summertime, there'll be some news on the parking.
Cool. And then he had some comments along as far as like coaching staff and everything. He said, fire Downing and Del Rio. Hire Josh McDaniels as head coach before he makes his leave for New York.
Vince. We've seen what McDaniels is as a head coach. We don't need to bring him in right now. I think JDR needs to stick around, but we do need a new OC. That's a no-brainer.
And then as far as players, he says we need to clicking things I shouldn't have. We need to bring in a veteran. I think he said quarterback,
Wide receiver. He said.
wide receiver. See, way to stay on the ball.
Have
He
a
said
veteran
bring
wide
in-
receiver in Michael Crabtree.
Yeah. Well, they just don't throw him the ball. So.
Yeah.
And he also says to keep on signing some defensive backs and cornerbacks, and to find a replacement for Lynch. And Pagano was an upgrade. It's pretty much what he has to say.
Who else? Do you have
The
anyone?
Winter Report, which I'm assuming is our friend Scott Winter.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
He in regards to the Knights, he was saying people love a winner, and the Knights are winning, also experiencing a rally around Vegas Strong and Civil Pride. And then he came back and said Denver.
Oh, that's the game that Carr was hurt in. They
There
hurt
we
his back.
go.
It was Denver, not
I was
Washington.
wondering why.
Thank you, Scott.
But
That's the only reason we would accept.
That's
a
what we got
comment like
going
that.
on.
Awesome. And no Eagles references there.
no.
Nor do we need any.
Okay.
I think.
Unless you want to talk about Randall. We're okay there.
Okay. Let's talk about the UNLV Running Rebels. And for the third time this season,
First off, I have to thank Scott for keeping the seat warm for me. So.
As he laughs as he
Thank
walks
you, man.
out.
Good to see
Very
you.
nice.
he wiped it down
Yeah.
with his little square.
Yeah, it's nice and warm.
Like his hanky
Yeah,
over there.
pocket
So,
square. First pocket square to ever appear on Sports
absolutely.
And
Little known trivia here.
he's making
Classing
us
up the
bad.
joint, man.
At least he wore a collar.
So for the third time this season, guys, UNLV has a Mountain West Conference Player of the Week. Shakur Houston, the Juice Man, 21 points, 11 boards, and a couple of wins. And if not really for his late game heroics against Northern Colorado, UNLV might have lost that game. He had 30-12.
Well, a couple thoughts on my end. One is that you knew he was going to win that.
Oh,
at
welcome
some
back,
point.
John.
Right.
Good to see you, man.
I have to establish myself early with all you guys talking for so long. Yeah, you knew he was going to win that award at some point, so not a surprise. Glad to see it sooner rather than later. Yeah. And two is that winning time. That Northern Colorado game, not a great performance wire to wire, but. You know, I'm starting to trust these guys in the last 4 minutes of a game, which you couldn't say that about previous Rebel teams. And I think if you can get to that point where you're not afraid to go into crunch time in a close game, I think that's huge. I mean, you're not going to win them all, but as long as they play in the final 4 minutes, no matter the opponent, no matter what if they play a garbage, what would it be, 36 minutes going into it. You know, if you can count on them in the final four, I think that's huge.
It's funny you say that because going back, and I hadn't even thought about this, going back to Dave Rice's teams, that's when they lost games.
Oh, yeah.
That was always
No
when
way.
they just found a way to turn the ball over, miss a free throw, whatever it was in the last 4 minutes of a game. That's where they found a way to lose the game. And winning time, that's Menzies' thing. JoJo's talked about it several times. That's when they were down 8 with 3.5 to go?
Yeah.
And they turned it around and,
Yeah.
and won the game.
Well, you look at the two games they lost; they were both overtime losses, and they could have used a little better clock management, especially in the Arizona game. No way they should have lost that game with how they played. But the end of game management was horrible in that game.
Yeah.
And you just hope that what you learned from something like that moving forward,
and that's true.
Has helped.
Now, that's the only thing that I can remember is Javon Mooring's shot against Arizona with 10 seconds to go was the worst play of the season, easily. But you can only, we're only pointing to a couple things versus, pointing to 5 or 6 a game or whatever it is. So that it
overall
seems like
the
they are
product
learning.
is
They
much
are
better.
learning,
Right.
Yeah.
It appears as though the Rebels in that Northern Colorado game conceded layups in order to stop the three-point shooting of Northern Colorado because they came in as an outside threat. So
There was a lot of lazy defense played overall in that game. I mean, I don't know if it was so much conceding or just not moving your feet, just not getting into position, no help side defense. They just didn't play an inspired game until 4 minutes ago, and they realized they had to play an inspired game.
The last 3 games in particular, guys, I just kind of sensed some issues with chemistry, right? And I'm not sure what's going on, but we watch this team enough. I've gone to practices. I've watched the team. I've been around the team. I've done some of the games, and to me, it's like McCoy just is getting more frustrated due to the lack of touches in the post. And if you go back now, I don't have the numbers to back it up, but the number of assists by Jordy Johnson, the number of assists that go inside to McCoy. For them to be successful in conference, I believe the point guard Johnson has to distribute the ball and get those touches down low, down the block to Brandon McCoy. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it last week. McCoy, there's no reason that McCoy shouldn't get a touch on every offensive possession as long as he's in the game. Him and Houston. The ball needs to be thrown into the post at least once on every possession.
run the offense through the
Yeah,
post.
I mean, these guys are good enough that they're going to get you. They're going to get you points every.
Do you
single
notice
game.
frustration though on the part of McCoy? Because I watch McCoy, and he posts up, gets good position inside, and they go around him or settle for, not a good shot.
I feel like McCoy plays up and down to the competition. I feel like as of right now, and he's a young kid. He's still a freshman. He kind of comes off as that kind of player where when the stage is big, like it was against Arizona, like it was against Utah, he's going to come out and he's going to be the most dominant player on the court. And when you're playing a team like Northern Colorado that you kind of expect to dominate and win going away, he plays down to that level. You see him not hustle as much. He doesn't fight for position as much. Not as aggressive on the boards. So maybe with conference play coming in, you see a little more aggression come out of him. I'd like to see him more active on the defensive end more than anything.
Well, and if you run the offense through the post, it also gives them the opportunity once that double team does come, for them to be able to open up their backcourt shooters and to be able to get more flow with the offense, because it also we'll see what the defense is going to do. You saw like a team against Illinois, they frustrated McCoy quite a bit with the double team, but if he's able to get more and more touches in that post, I think he's gonna be able to pass out of that a lot better than he has been.
And in Northern Colorado, there was a lot of single coverage in that game where I thought he could have really dominated inside. He had to create his own shots, and he got some rebounds inside. Matt, you went by the Mendenhall today?
Yeah, so conference play starting up
against Boise Saturday night, right?
Boise Saturday night, expected to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the conference. So right off the bat, a big test for UNLV. Jojo Mooring was out there at Mendenhall this morning, and we had a chance to talk to him for a couple of minutes.
You know what it's like to not much play. Just what did you learn last year, and how can that help you this season?
Just you got to be prepared for each team. You actually watched the games yesterday. We saw upset with Wyoming and San Diego State, and it just shows you that any night, any team could be beat. So it's just about preparing, making sure you're ready for this type of play.
What do you guys know about Boise State already?
They're similar to Northern Iowa. Who watch both teams play. They play a lot of the same type of defensive schemes, and they're very disciplined. They do a great job defensively, making you take tough shots, and they can shoot the ball better than anybody in the country. So
they're projected as one of the top teams in this conference. You like starting off conference play with one of the best teams?
Yeah, that's the way we want it to be. I wish every game we play could be, a team considered above us. So, that does nothing but makes us want to play even more.
As a senior leader on the team, have you let the younger guys know what the grind is like in conference play and the step up in intensity every night?
I think they're starting to learn that themselves, throughout the season, just how tough it is, how quick you have to think out there. So, I think everyone's ready, including the freshmen. They've done a great job of listening to the coaches, and taking in the leadership that we give them. So, I think everyone's on the same page.
What will Boise State tell you about where your team is right now?
It'll tell you a lot, because they're a very good team. They're a quality team. They beat some big teams so far this year, so beating them it'll be a great start for us.
Marvin's talked a lot about, as far as defensive game plans, forcing tough twos. How does he coach that? How does he coach that to you guys? How does he tell you guys to force tough twos from teams?
Well, it's just pressuring the ball, running shooters off the line, not letting guys get open looks, because, when teams get hot behind the three, that can make it a long night for anyone. So you give up tough twos, it makes the game a lot longer, so.
Do you guys have possessions where you might give up a basket, but it's a tough two, and you guys go back down on the when you're back on the defensive end, you guys are okay with that because it was the shot you want them to take?
Well, yeah, you could say that, but teams are going to make threes, Teams are going to make a lot of shots, but it's just thinking about the next possession, A team scores, or it's not the end of the world, so it's just moving on to the next possession.
Thanks, Jojo.
There we go. We're back.
everybody.
Lost us there for a minute. So Mooring one of the things that stood out to me there talking to Mooring was he talked about playing teams above him or above UNLV as far as expectations go, teams that are supposed to be better than them, and how he wished they could play them every night. And that, again, speaks to playing up and down to level of competition. It feels like this team, they tend to get up a little more for the bigger teams, the bigger names, and that's human nature, I think. But I'd like to see them, get out there and really put a beat down on a team like Northern Colorado. Exactly. Yeah. We also had a chance to talk to Marvin Menzies. I asked him the same question I asked Mooring about getting the younger kids ready to get into conference play here. Talking to the younger kids about the grind and the step up in intensity in conference play, and he said they've kind of taken that on themselves. If you had to tell them anything about how different this is going to be now.
We talked about it a little bit first day back from after Christmas. Just when it means more to the teams, to the schools, to the administrations, the university, you have a different feel. There's a different energy in the building, the environments, in the offices, in the marketing, the whole. Anybody affiliated with the program, it's a little more heightened now because it gets real. So we talked about what that means to them and what their investment needs to be in order to, pay those folks back that are working hard, and everybody's, there's just so many hands involved with trying to make this a successful, program in every program that we're going against. So you want to do right by those folks that are, working hard, and so the emotion is a little bit heightened. You're playing for more. The stakes are a little bit higher. So we just talked about that whole dynamic.
Yeah, conference play. I mean, it's bigger, right? It means more. Everybody's at 0-0. You have to defend home court, which we have another video from Coach there. But we had conference play started up last night, and you saw how important home court could be, especially when you're looking at San Diego State and Wyoming, where San Diego State went in as a favorite, and they got thumped by Wyoming.
Sure. In this league, you talked about facing the level of your competition. Mm-hmm. You got to be ready every night.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've seen that, especially with UNLV.
Air Force.
They go play a team like Air Force, play a team like San Jose State. Mm-hmm. You got to be careful because those are going to ultimately be the games at the end of the season that are going to come back and bite you if you lose them. I mean, you got to win the expected games and then show up for the big ones too. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to face Boise State, UNR, and Wyoming every night.
No. One more quick one from Marvin Menzies here talking about the importance of home court. 4 out of 5 teams last night in the Mountain West defended their home court with the only road win coming from those guys up north. Have you stressed to the team how important in conference play it is to defend that home court?
We have talked about that, yeah. We talk about that every time we play at home, for sure, right? About the pride of defending your court and what I referenced earlier about all the people that are coming to the games that are in town, that work here, that work on campus, and giving them some continued, pride in what we're doing as a program. It's really our opportunity to give back a little bit, and so we talk about that and some other factors that go into protecting the home court. That's critical in conference, especially. So this is a big game.
And UNLV's played just one home game in the last couple of weeks, right, due to exams. So hopefully they don't come out flat on Saturday night. I don't know if you guys noticed this also on Christmas Day. There were a lot of recruits that were offered scholarships on Christmas Day, and I thought that was genius, because the kids aren't going to forget, right, that they got offered by UNLV. And also at halftime on Saturday, the 77 UNLV Running Rebel team will be honored, with Eddie Owens being the focal point of that celebration. They retired his jersey last year. So
Hardway 8.
Yeah, the Hardway 8, and it starts at 8 o'clock. That's Hardway 2.
Wow.
The game tips off at 8 o'clock at the Thomas and Mack
Center. That's good
planning. Yeah. I also wanted to touch on UNLV football because there's a lot going on outside with the Rebels program now, talking about replacing the defensive coordinator, secondary/special teams coach too. And Joe Arrigo, inside the Rebels.com, says to keep an eye out now for the Florida linebackers coach, Tim Skipper. He was one of the first hires of Jim McElwain when he became the head coach there at Florida. He was McElwain's linebacker coach, I think, at Colorado State, and has a feel for the conference. 2 years of running backs coach at Florida, but now there's a new head coach. Dan Mullen is at University of Florida, and Skipper, a Fresno guy, perhaps making his way back west.
It's a little different this year also with recruiting because the signing period was in late December versus having to wait till February. So they were very busy through the holidays. You never know. Yet to be seen with some of these that have signed. You saw a few local kids, which is always great to see, staying home to play at UNLV.
Anything's an upgrade. Is that sad to say? That's sad to say. Defensive coordinator.
No, it's absolutely true.
Yeah, I thought that's what.
Yeah, I mean,
that's where we're at.
It's a harsh reality.
You want to check in with Haley? Or
Sure.
Do one final
one
start?
last time, Haley.
No.
Come up with something
hold
if
on.
you don't have anything.
You
You'll
need to
have your
read
final thoughts. And
You need
your
to read your own
resolutions.
comment first here. It looks like you have a problem with how people look up here.
I was just suggesting to get a dress code since Scott came in with his cute little pocket square and John and Tony have T-shirts on.
We don't need pocket squares to look good.
He looked really good with his pocket square.
No. It's all about the content. It's about the content.
Yeah, that's one, but we don't need pocket squares.
I don't want to be just another pretty face.
How did you define cute little?
Cute little pocket square.
Cute little pocket
Cute little pocket square. It was very fashionable.
A lot of people just say that about me in general, so I don't need that.
They call him a square. They just call you square. No.
Oh, I thought you were going.
He's a cute little square.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you for that.
He's a cute little square.
How do you pronounce his last name again?
Hashtag.
Yeah.
But no, Tony, I had a question though because you said UNLV with offering the scholarships on Christmas. Do you think they're gonna forget that UNLV offered them a scholarship at all if it wasn't on Christmas? Is that what
No,
you're
but
saying?
just think it's like another present under the tree.
She's in the mood today.
I know.
No, she's always in a mood. That's
Just
it.
today.
I'm very sleepy.
She keeps us honest, though.
I'm very
I do.
sleepy.
I like the
very
snark.
sleepy.
I
Other
like the
than that, Sarah Owens.
Hey, little sis.
I forget what this is in regards to, but she said he should touch the ball every time.
McCoy in the post.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's
Probably
what it was
McCoy.
about.
She's every bit a diehard Rebel fan as I am, maybe more.
Okay, good. We should bring her on.
Yeah, she might scream and yell if they do poorly. So be
Thanks.
ready.
We'll check in with
Yeah,
you
that's all
one
I
more
got.
time.
Oh, okay. We're gonna go back to you one more time.
Yeah.
Come up with something better than pocket squares.
Yeah, pocket square.
Yeah.
Saturday night, T-Mobile, Chris Cyborg, Holly Holm, main event. The featherweight champion Cyborg. She hasn't lost in forever. Her first fight she lost in 2005. She's 18-1-1. No one wanted to fight her. Holm on the way down now.
Yeah.
1-3 since she defeated Ronda Rousey. I put knocking off Ronda Rousey's head. You know.
Yeah.
And for Holm to contend in this fight, she just can't be intimidated. I think that's part of the game for Cyborg.
She got to
Any
stay on her
thoughts?
feet and throw. I mean, she has to do what she did to Rousey, which is just outbox her. If she goes to the ground, that's a wrap.
Yeah.
That's over.
And from what I know, I don't know. I mean, I know what I know about both fighters.
He used the word "no" 5 times in that sentence. That was good.
That was quadruple negative.
Cyborg likes to throw, and Holm likes to be the counterpuncher, right? I
Right.
think it's a good match of styles, and I'm hoping. I don't know what the odds are here. I'd like to see Holly, step up. Maybe she's just a big game, big name fighter. Maybe she's one of those people that shows her best when she's up against it the most. Maybe that's what we see on Saturday.
I also wanted to, before we go into final thoughts today, mention that we'll be doing a show tomorrow with the Sin Bin guys. I'll be out at the Sprint store, 3862 West Sahara. That's tomorrow from 3 to 4 p.m. It'll be on the Sin Bin Vegas Facebook page, and we're going to be previewing the upcoming Ice Vegas Invitational, the college tournament that's coming into town. Boston College, Michigan Tech, Arizona State, Northern Michigan coming to the T-Mobile Arena in a couple of weeks. So tune in tomorrow. And then Saturday, starting at noon at that very same store. It's on West Sahara and Valley View here in Las Vegas. Pairs of tickets will be given away starting at noon at the Sprint store while supplies last. So that's it for me.
There you go.
All right. And instead of resolutions today, guys, I think we should, instead of final thoughts, we should do resolutions, right?
Okay.
For local sports teams
Okay.
of any sort.
Sounds good.
Haley, do you want to kick things off for us over there? I know I hate to
We
put
might
you
have
on
been
the spot.
springing this on her.
Scott Winters had made a comment that the Oakland Raiders are actually the most penalized team in NFL history. So I did a little research, and since 1990, they released the 10 teams each season who was penalized the most, and the Raiders are on there 5 times. Wow. So Raiders, even though I'm not a diehard Raiders fan, would like to see you clean up your act a little bit. You think
it's impossible.
I know they're known for being a dirty team, but like, just
but here's
up a little bit.
Don't get me started on this.
You're getting Matt
but
fired up.
tell me real quick.
No. Let her go.
That was really dirty.
Let her
That was
go.
really
I
dirty.
just one
fellas,
question.
back down.
I just want to know
No,
who from
wait,
1990.
That's her resolution.
No, it's a
Who
resolution.
from 1990 is still there
She doesn't.
today?
The
I'm just
resolution
curious.
is that the Raiders will not be dirty
I'm
next
standing
year.
up for you, Haley. Come on.
We're gonna
Thanks,
get Matt
Hallie.
fired up.
Yeah, you
going
can't
into
do
the
it.
year.
You're the best.
Can't do
Go
it.
ahead, Rick.
New Year's resolution for the Vegas Golden Knights. Playing as well as they are, keep the team together. Make the run that you're able to make with this team, and you know what? Re-sign the guys that you can. This is too special of a year, and too many things going on historically to break up this team. So Vegas Golden Knights, keep the team together. Take this as far as you can. Bring the cup home in the first year. Who would have thought we could say that and not get laughed at?
The betting odds are going down as we speak. After that, go ahead.
I'm going to go to my first local sports love, which is UNLV Running Rebel basketball. Win the Mountain West Conference.
Please.
For once, just win the conference. I'm not talking about the tournament. I'm not talking about getting into the NCAAs. You need to win your conference. It's been since 2000 since you won the Mountain West, and that was a split co-champion thing, right? They didn't win it by themselves. They didn't win it outright. Go out there, dominate this conference, protect the Thomas and Mack floor, and just be the running Rebels of old. Go out there and be what this city expects you to be, which is a dominant college basketball team.
Well said.
So, it's uber picky, but it's my resolution, so I'm just going to go with it. It's for the Golden Knights, and man, it's picky. I love what they're doing. I've enjoyed every single game that I've gone to, but you got to change the goal song. I'm sorry. I don't like it.
Nope.
I don't like it. Nobody sings it. Nobody knows what it is. I mean, we know what it is. You can't understand the words. You can't hear the words when they score a goal, and that's great because the fans are excited. It's uber picky. I get it. Keep on winning games. Most important priority. But that goal song, now when I hear it, I'm just like, get something that the entire crowd can get behind. Right? You have the initial roar, and then something like the Blackhawks do, Da, 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 da. Something that everybody can cheer at the same time to make that place louder than what it already is. Uber picky. Change the goal song, Golden Knights, please.
How come every time we have to change something, it has to be a Chicago thing? Cubs,
I'm just
Blackhawks.
because there's
You
so
haven't
much
thrown any
amazing
Bulls in there
tradition.
yet.
There's so much amazing tradition.
We don't want your
in the city
Chicago
of
tradition, John.
That I just, I mean, I don't know. It sets the standard for the nation.
Why don't you make your own personal New Year's resolution and make your own Knights goal song, and you can present it to them, or you can at least try to start it yourself.
Okay. So next week I will have a presentation.
Gauntlet
Yeah.
thrown.
Okay. So we'll revisit this.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Way to call them out, Haley.
Okay, Tony. Oh, thank you. Resolutions.
Get
Peace and
comfortable,
unity for our
everybody.
city. It's been a really rough year. First and foremost, Vegas Strong. Hashtag Vegas Strong. I keep wanting to see a spell with the Vegas Golden Knights where they're quitting or they're losing, right? And right now it's just not happening. And so for the Vegas Golden Knights, definitely a deep playoff run. And also, don't question marketing, Tony. By the way, where are the giveaway nights? Is there
As a season ticket holder, I would like one.
Anything planned?
I can't believe nobody
Castanino bobblehead night?
took
Something?
out chance in all the resolutions.
They jacked up the prices. We didn't talk about this at all. I guess that's for another day.
Yeah,
$1,000 more for the season next year.
Raiders Stadium, stay ahead of schedule with no delays. Success for the WNBA and the Las Vegas Lights. Start construction on the new 51s baseball stadium. Look at all this sports stuff. An NC2A bid for the Running Rebels. Brandon McCoy lottery pick. Winning season in bowl game for UNLV football. Successful groundbreaking and completion
final thoughts.
of the
It's like
new
the Tony Show.
We should start
on
Save it for
campus
the Dasko
with him
effect,
next week.
all
football
right?
facility. Good luck Las Vegas Motor Speedway with the second race, and more monster trucks.
Save it for the Dasko effect next week. Dasko effect Wednesday nights.
Haley,
60 minutes of resolutions next week.
Haley,
I hope everybody
thank you
got
so
those.
much. Was that good? Was I okay?
It was great.
that on
You did a
point?
great job. Cardi B would be so proud of you.
Thank you, Offset. You're the Offset to my You're the Cardi B to my Offset. Thank you so much, everyone out there,
Happy
for
New
tuning
Year,
in.
everyone.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Be safe.
Thanks again to Scott Cole-Branson.
That was great.
For
Good job with
Rick
that.
Strasser, for Matt Gutierrez, for John Castagnino,
Happy New Year, everybody.
for John Castanino, and our producer, Richard
Thanks,
Giacomino.
Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
I'm Tony Cardasco. That's a lot of Italians at the end. Thanks for tuning in. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll
Be
see
safe,
you next week.
Be smart. See you next year.